is happening, and nothing needs your attention right away. Maybe you're sitting, maybe you're lying down, maybe you're just letting your mind wander a little while following along. That's fine. That's exactly how this kind of story works best. There's a room, a simple one, soft light, nothing too bright, nothing too dark, just enough to see everything clearly without needing to focus too hard. The walls are plain, the air feels still, comfortable, safe. In the center of the room, there's a chair, nothing unusual about it. It looks like the kind of chair you wouldn't think twice about sitting in. So you do, or maybe you imagine doing it. Either way, it feels natural. You settle in. The quiet remains. There's a small table nearby. On it, a single object. You don't need to know what it is yet. You can look at it later, or not at all. It doesn't matter. Nothing here is forcing you to pay attention. That's the important part. This story doesn't demand anything from you. It just continues. At your pace, you notice your breathing. Not because something told you to, just because everything else is so still. In, out, slow, even, good, now. There's a sound, very soft. So soft you almost don't register it at first. A small shift somewhere in the room. Don't react immediately. There's no reason to. Rooms make sounds sometimes. Things settle. Air moves. Nothing unusual, so you stay where you are, calm. The sound doesn't repeat. And that should be the end of it. But something about it stays with you, not the sound itself. Just the awareness that it happened. You glance around slowly. Everything looks the same, exactly as it was. The chair, the table, the soft light, nothing has changed. And yet, there's a small feeling difficult to describe. Not fear, not discomfort, just attention. Like the room is slightly more present than it was before. You shift a little in your seat. The movement feels normal, grounding. Another moment passes, then another, still quiet, still calm. You relax again. And just as that relaxation settles fully, there's another sound. This one is even softer, but closer, not by much, just enough. You don't turn immediately this time, because now you're aware of something. The sounds aren't random, they're spaced. You wait, listening. Nothing happens. You let out a small breath. It's nothing. That thought feels fully. But the moment it forms, the room responds, not with movement, not with sound, but with confirmation. The quiet changes again, subtly, as if something has acknowledged that you noticed. You don't move. And for a long moment, nothing else happens. Then, very softly, from somewhere you can't quite place, a voice, calm, gentle, almost reassuring, says, "You're doing fine." The room returns to silence, and the story still calm, still patient. The voice that stays gentle, the voice does not repeat itself. Not immediately, "You're doing fine." Leaves the words there, like something carefully placed rather than spoken. And for a moment, nothing follows. You remain in the chair. The room remains the same, soft light, still air, quiet walls. Your breathing is steady. That hasn't changed. And because nothing else happens, because nothing seems to be happening, you begin to relax again. That's when the thought arrives. Maybe it's part of the story. It feels like a good explanation. A safe one, of course. There would be a voice. Of course it would speak. That's normal. You nod slightly to yourself. Yes, you think. That makes sense. As soon as that thought settles, the voice returns. You prefer it when things make sense. It's calm, exactly the same tone as before. Not louder, not closer, just present. You don't respond. Shift slightly in the chair, not because you're uncomfortable, but because something about that sentence felt too accurate. The room remains still. The voice does not press further. It doesn't need to, because now you're thinking about it. And that's enough. A moment passes, then another. You decide to test something carefully. You think it's just guessing. The voice answers almost immediately. Not exactly. Your chest tightens slightly, because that was fast, too fast. You stay quiet. The voice softens again. Then the voice speaks again, softer this time. You notice that. Look away from the table slowly. You think. The voice continues. It's easier when you focus on one thing at a time. That makes sense. Too much sense. You shift again in your seat. Because now you're aware of something else. The voice isn't just speaking, it's guiding, not forcefully, not obviously, but precisely. Your attention moves where it Your fingers tighten slightly against the arm of the chair. That wasn't a guess. That felt like certainty. The room feels quieter now, not empty. Focused, like everything is arranged around a single point. The voice continues. You're still comfortable. You hesitate because that's true even now. There's no fear, no panic, just awareness and something else. Something subtle, a lack of control that doesn't feel urgent enough to fight. The voice softens further. That's important. Swallow. You whisper, finally speaking out loud. The voice answers immediately. Because if you felt uncomfortable, a pause, then you would try to leave. Silence follows. And for the first time, that thought lands differently. Leave. You hadn't considered that before, not seriously. Because until now, there was no reason to. The room is still calm, still quiet, still safe. And yet, you look around again, more carefully this time. The walls, the light, the table, the object, everything is still the same. But the feeling has changed. Not enough to panic, just enough to notice. You shift in the chair again. And this time it feels harder, not physically, just less automatic. You pause, because that's new. The voice speaks again, still calm, still gentle. You're becoming aware of it now. Your heartbeat picks up slightly. You ask, a small pause, then the part where it stops being entirely yours fills the room. And this time it doesn't feel empty at all. It feels occupied. You don't move. You don't finish it, because something tells you if you do, the story will change. And as the silence stretches, the voice doesn't speak again. It doesn't need to, because now you're waiting for it. The moment calm becomes control, you keep waiting. Not because you want to, but because something in the room has taught you that waiting is what comes next. The voice doesn't speak immediately. That's deliberate. You can feel that now. Before, the pauses matched you now. Because another thought replaces it. If I leave, this stops. The voice responds instantly, yes, You freeze, because that wasn't spoken out loud, not even fully formed. And yet it was answered. The voice continues. It would stop for you. A pause. Then, but not entirely, your chest tightens. What does that mean? You ask. The voice doesn't rush. It means what you think it means. That answer feels incomplete, but also intentional. You look at the door again. You could go,